Thank you, Mikola. Thank you, Miroslav, for joining us today on the podcast. Um, I would like to open up with basically give me a little bit of a background about both of you. Tell me a little bit about yourselves. I know if I'm not mistaken, I did a little bit of research about you, Mikola. You used to work for the Ukrainian Children's Rights Commissioner for the Ukrainian government, and
Yeah,
then you
yeah,
transitioned to the private sector. You founded Save Ukraine, and that's quite interesting to me.
yeah. I've been volunteer in 90s. It's far away. 5 years ago, it's maybe 1998, 99. I began my work in Kiev, in the capital, because after Soviet Union collapse, it was a lot of street children, yeah,
Mhm.
and orphans who lived on the streets. And that time I felt that it's calling for my life, and I devoted my life to serve children. And I built different services in Kiev, and then after 2004, we had our first revolution. It was Orange Revolution, and new government invited me to serve on the position of child protection services, head of child protection services in Kiev, and 9 years I was there. But when um, full scale invasion, not sorry, when first invasion happened, and the new president invited me to be his commissioner on children's rights. Yeah, I served with him. Then I served 2 years with Zelensky on that position. And just before, 6 months before full scale invasion, I finished my work there. And when full scale invasion happened, I began um, my my just renew my organization, because I founded Save Ukraine after first invasion. It is the largest organization for rescuing the most vulnerable children and families, especially orphans, children with disabilities, and their families, rescuing from combat zones and rescue them from Russia and occupied territories. And for now, we rescued from combat zone more than 100,000 children and women, their families, and 770 kids from Russia and occupied territories. We built like underground railroad is very unique system which allows us to searching, identifying, locating kids. We are building communication, and we safely rescuing them from a danger. And we have even kids who've been rescued from Russian facilities, institutions, Russian foster families, or military academies. But it's longest story.
Wow. Okay. So your story goes back over 25 years then, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how
I'm
about
26.
Miroslava?
26 now. Yeah.
Time goes by quick.
Yeah. 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 Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like yesterday, really. Like started yesterday, but we have really it's like worse circumstances where we can plan only for one day and to do our best to rescue kids this day, because it's really hard to plan for years, because every day we have something new reality, and or more shelling, less shelling, more occupation when Russia occupying new territories, or many people died because not only because Russia shelling, but because servicemen on the battlefield dying, and it's someone's parents. It could be a father, someone's father or mother, and it's a tragedy because Russia constantly annihilating, trying to annihilate our identity and destroy us as a nation. They don't want we exist. That's why we have to be strong, resilient, and stand and fight.
So is that what motivates you? Is that what shaped you to start to save Ukraine? Because I mean, you founded this in 2004, and then I was just reading a little bit about you, and one thing that you mentioned before in some of your other interviews is like you grew up during the Soviet Union, right? Then during the USSR.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
probably shaped a lot of your thoughts and how you saw things.
yeah, I grew up in Soviet Union and I graduated school there. I know what does it mean Soviet regime. It's equally a Russian regime because the same regime now in Russia in Russia and that kids and families who've been rescued by us were like that told us a lot about what happened in occupied territories, and their testimonies is not unique. The testimonies under Russian regime where Russia threatening children, subjecting kids to attending Russian schools, Russian subject, speak only Russian language, and pray on Putin and glorify him because it's only one leader, and glorify Russia and banning any Ukrainian or language or just signs, just yellow blue color is forbidden because it's color of Ukrainian flag. Yeah, and children suffer really, and families suffer, and this regime hurts a lot of kids and families, and many kids so hugely traumatized because they've seen how their relatives were killed or tortured before their eyes, and it's horrible to know this. Yeah, really, we have these kids in our services and they telling us these stories.
Wow. Yeah, that's terrible to hear, especially for a parent. I'm assuming you're a parent.
Yeah, I have 4 kids. Yeah,
Okay, so then yeah, you can understand. It's like imagine you're a kid going through that, then you take it a little bit more personal. You see that this children
it
suffering,
should
you're
be.
like, yeah,
It should be. It must be personal because, if, especially now when we try to involve countries, whole civilized world to protect Ukraine, to protect our children, and to feel it personally. It's not just about someone's, any country. I feel this personally, and not because I'm Ukrainian, because I'm father of 4 kids. And I cannot imagine if someone will come to my home, will torture me or kidnap my kids and do something with my wife, with my relatives, and take out my property. And then my neighbors will tell me, "Come down, come down." Yeah, it's maybe maybe time will heal your trauma, and we have to decide if that perpetrator is bad guy. Maybe he's a not good, not bad guy. Let's discuss this. Maybe that man is not so bad, and you should calm down, get used, and to stop to be so aggressive. It's not good for you, but I'm telling you, it's my kids. I want take them back. They told, okay, we will think about it, maybe later. But they growing up in enemy's house, and but okay, but this enemy coming every day, and and torture me. But in my position, I want really my friends protect me and
yeah,
help me, to help my kids, to help me. You know that I I I want to all my friends feel have the same feelings,
yeah,
feel and support me because it's so painful. I'm suffering every day. That's why we have this feeling now. It doesn't matter my kids suffer or someone's kids suffer. because I have one very good verse of Martin Luther King, and if you know this guy, and more than more than 60 years ago, Martin Luther King told one very important thing that let me let me tell you about this.
Mhm.
Martin Luther King told that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
It's true.
That's why it doesn't matter. United States, Canada, Europe, Japan, any country. We have to remember this.
I completely agree with you, and I agree with you with the sentiment that certain people, when you talk about the children getting impacted, that you get a lot of pushback of calm down, everything's going to be okay. I see that from our organization too, when people come and say that, friends, family, and I'm curious, why do you think people can accept it and not have the fire that you have because you're very passionate and you've been doing it for a very long time. Why do you think why do people forget that?
It is a real question for to we want to understand more. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for whole countries. If we will tolerate these horrible things, this world will be changed. And as for me, when people have comfort and they don't want to lose this comfort, it's not only about their actions, it's about their condition of thinking. It's not comfortable to think about something bad, about if someone hurts, kill, invade country, do something injustice. And it's normally for any person it's like to feel comfort. And when someone feels pain, it's my decision if I want to help or close my eyes and stand apart. And that it's a decision of everyone.
Yeah.
And as for me, wealthy countries, they have comfortable life and they don't want to lose this comfort.
Mm.
Okay, we not agree with taxes, but okay, I have my property, salary, my job, and house, I have my vacations, and everything good. Why I should think about something bad?
Yeah.
Why I should sitting in United States or any country, why I should think what happened with children in Ukraine, how they suffer. It is, that's why Russia, through their propaganda, make these people like staying apart.
Yeah.
And the main narrative of Putin, це не все так однозначно. Not
Not so everything is not so clear.
not everything not so clear. It's але переклади там не так. It's like, guys, like, stay apart. Don't
Yeah.
do anything. What if you will make a mistake? What if you will act to support Ukrainian children make a mistake? Because Putin's narratives, it's like we are saving these kids. We are not hurting them. And it's very simple narrative, and people think, okay, maybe it's true. How a president of such a big country can tell lie? Maybe he's right. He's saving from whom? Oh, from Nazi. Not Nazi one hurts that kids. I'm saving them. And people have no critical thinking. Who invaded them?
Right.
Who invaded their territories? Who kidnapping their children?
Right.
Because this guy is like, that's why I told you about my house. If someone will come to your house, my house, and rape, kill, kidnap, do something wrong, and then tell everybody that, guys, I did this because that guys is very bad. He's bad. You don't know him. He's a very bad father. I know,
Mhm.
believe me. And people believe. It's
Naively.
stupid. It's
Yeah.
stupid, but it happening every day through Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
They affecting people of propaganda, and people stay apart, believe, because it is more comfortable not to change your position and stay on the same position with comfortable life and think that nothing happened with me.
That's true. And I agree. I think people, if you have a comfortable life, you just rather not question the system and be like, okay, why would I do something that would disrupt my comfortable life? I'd rather not think about anything that makes me feel uncomfortable, that would bring me sadness. So don't even think about it and let things continue until it impacts you. Then it's a little bit too late at that point. And the way I see it, and I kind of would like to hear your perspective, and I think you touched on this a little bit here. You said that the children are the future of a country. And if you have no children, you have no future. I mean, that's a problem in Japan right now, right? It's a problem that's going on in a lot of parts of the world where there are no children, so there is no future. So, and the children that are currently getting, kidnapped as prisoners of war in like Ukraine, as an example, it's not even on the news, in major news. And I asked myself, why? I mean, this should be on the headlines of every news outlet around the world, but you rarely see it. Why do you think that is? Why are they talking on CNN, MSNBC?
As I told you, because Russia and their propaganda telling that it is not black or white, it is gray. Guys, it is gray. Stop doing something. What if you will make a mistake? Or what if you will do wrong?
Yeah.
Do nothing. It's better for you to stay in your comfort. That's why not it's really complicated issues, because even about numbers, if I will try to tell you about numbers, because on the one hand you can hear that 20,000 Ukrainian children identify as a kidnapped, as abducted children. And on the other hand, 1.6 million of Ukrainian children are stolen through occupation of their territories. Can you imagine 1.6 million immediately? It's for 11 years, but when Russian invaders came and cut their town, city, village, they found themselves in occupation and Russian soldiers around, and they are in trap. They cannot leave that territory. And after that, they told these kids and their parents, if their parents were killed, they were kidnapped. And Russia stated 2 years ago that 700,000 Ukrainian children have been registered in Russia as a Russian. 700,000. Russia stated, it's not our number. We don't know even now how many from that 1.6 million in Russia occupied territories, condition of their life, how many of them unaccompanied minors, whose parents were killed, arrested, disappeared. We don't know because Russia didn't want to give us any information. They did not provide us with information. And we still have no idea where are they. And but it's a real kids, and especially little kids,
Yeah.
innocent kids who had 3, 5, 7 years old. They know nothing about their identity, about their parents, and they were just stolen. And they are in Russia captivity. They're hostages.
Yeah.
Dozens of thousands of children are hostages because someone decided to take them to their country and indoctrinate them and turn them into Russian children. And it's Russia's strategy because their strategy is totally annihilate Ukrainian identity and to destroy us as a country. I can tell you a lot of stories of that children who've been rescued. One 14 years old girl, after being rescued, when we brought her to Ukraine, she, first of all, she asked, where I am. Is it Russia? We told no, it is Ukraine, but Ukraine not exist anymore. I told, exist. You are in Ukraine, but I heard in Russia that in Russian media from Russian caregivers, the Ukraine not exist anymore. What happened? I don't understand. Yeah, it is reality for many kids. That's why, first of all, we have to find them. It's not only about numbers, it's about real innocent kids who now
Right.
could sit in a Russian facility being hostage and just dreaming about if they can come back to Ukraine.
It's almost like these children are prisoners of war, like soldiers.
Yeah, yeah, the same. You are right, because what we heard from prisoners of war, what happened with them in Russian prisons, the same happened with children in Russian schools in occupied territories. Our prisoners told me that every day Russian soldiers in prison forced them uh, or subjected to sing Russian anthem, to read Russian poetry and tell this poetry, and to speak only Russian, and they were subjected to this. These same
Wow.
stories, these same stories from our kids, from Russian schools, when they were subjected to attend Russian schools, they were subjected to speak Russian language. It was forbidden to speak Ukrainian. They were subjected to learn Russian subjects. They were educated as Russian children. They were subjected to glorify Russia, sing Russian anthem, and everything. It's
Wow.
equally what happened. The same happened with prisoners of war. That's why they are hostages. They have no any rights there. They cannot tell anybody what happened with them and ask about help, because in Russia you isolated, you like in a bubble. And you mentioned Soviet Union. Do you remember the Iron Curtain?
I mean, I wasn't alive. Well, actually, I was. I was extremely young. I was like 5 years old, but I've heard about this. Yes, of course.
It's Iron Curtain. Russia built Iron Curtain, and no any families. They are in a trap. They cannot leave their territories and
Mm.
come back to control area, and it's many reasons. It's many reasons. One of the reason, right after they will leave their property,
Mhm.
Russia will nationalize this property. They will
Mhm.
take to Russian government, and you will never come back. You will never have this property again. It's That's why they have to stay. Another reason, they have their relatives there. They cannot leave their grandmother, grandfather with the bad health. Another reason, if they have no Russian passport, they cannot have they cannot use transport because they will not allow to use any bus or train without Russian passport. You will not be able to buy a ticket. First, you will not be able to cross the checkpoints. It's dozens of checkpoints, and in on every point checkpoint they will check your documents, and you could be arrested immediately and separated with your kids after filtration, and you will never find your kid. It's many reasons. It's I'm trying to explain what is a Russian trap.
Right. No, thank you for giving us that picture. And yeah, I mean, I was in Uzbekistan about a year and a half ago, and is a a former USSR territory. There's still you see some remnants of that. When I entered the region, it was like passport for everything. I have a voucher for certain things that I would do, which they told me you must keep this voucher because when you leave the country, they will ask you for these vouchers to validate what that you were here, etc. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. So I'm assuming if you are a child who has been taken from these territories and you are now in Russia, you basically are you have to be compliant to that system or else you can't even travel, maybe, right? And I guess the question is, since you heard stories from soldiers, you from children, I think you mentioned 770 kids that you've saved. What are some of these stories that you've heard that have really touched you, really impactful? And then another thing I have a question is like, can you walk us through the process? What happens when they take a child and how they're moved about? Because I've heard some stories, I've read some stories, but I'm not sure of the accuracy. And I would like for our listeners to kind of know, well, how's that happening?
We have a tons of such stories. It's horrible stories on the one hand. On the other hand, it's uh, it's about children's fight for their freedom and how they were saved, and about the hope. And I remember one kid, 13 years old, who was taken to Russian summer camp, which is re-education camp, and he was there 6 months. Can you imagine? He is maybe 13 years old boy or 12 years old boy who were taken to this re-education camp. He was separated with his mother and grandmother, and we rescued him. And because his mother found us and asked about his his extraction from there, and we could do this only through bringing this mother to that Russian camp, and we did that with documents, with everything, and we rescued that boy. And after being rescued, I talked with him and I asked, okay, you've been 6 months in that facility in being hostage, and they did not allow you to speak with the mother. And did you have a hope to be rescued? And he told, yeah, sure. He bravely answered that, yeah, 100%. I planned my escape. I told, you plan to escape of that facility? How? He told, yeah, together with my friend, we were planning our escape, and only one thing stopped us because we planned our route to Ukraine, but only one thing stopped: how we will cross minefields on the battlefield, on the cross line. I told, what do you mean? But it is mines. Yeah, but we had a plan how to cross minefields. We planned that we will throw stones.
Wow.
and then step on these stones.
Wow.
Can you imagine your child being kidnapped, sitting in Russian facility, and at night with a friend planning escape to reach you and planning how he will cross minefields through throwing stones and stepping on these stones. I was crying. Really, I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine that my kids is doing this. It's a brave kid, but
Yeah.
it's a horrible story. It's a horrible story when
12-year-olds are
someone
doing this.
someone it's I cannot imagine. But really, he was so brave, and he didn't come down, and he was planning. He first of all he was waiting that maybe his mother will help him, will reach him, but it didn't happen because Russia banned everything. But we did. We helped, and this boy now in control area with the mother, and they they survived. And this is one of the thousands of stories of children.
It is absurd to think that 12-year-olds are thinking this way in order to get themselves out of these campsites to go back to their families. Yeah, like you said, if that was my daughter at 12 throwing rocks and trying not to go through a minefield, it would tear me apart. And I'm surprised that this is not covered all over the news and kept talking. It's just at the front of the news nonstop for the last several years. And I think you mentioned this in this podcast and another podcast that I watched of you. This has been going on for a minimum 11 years now.
Yeah.
So it did not start with the invasion. And it's been going for quite some time. And I know there's 1.6 million children who've been affected, right? How does Russia keep such a tight grip on this? Do you know any idea?
It's Russia's strategy is to invade whole country and indoctrinate all kids, turn them into Russian children, and especially into Russian soldiers. They doing this systematically,
Got
and
it.
we have a lot of proof. And Russia has a huge problem with the demographic problem, and they need kids because they have a huge territory with no people.
Right,
But they no need pro-Ukrainian people. They
right.
need very pro-Russian people. That's why Russian propaganda hugely brainwash them. And they showing them that Russia is a victim. It is the West is aggressor. It's a proxy war, and United States and Europe united against Russia and on Ukrainian land fighting with Russia. And Russia is only protecting themselves. And they are brainwashing massively their population and Ukrainian population to make them or to turn them into Russian population through hatred. They
Wow.
instill hatred towards Ukraine. Yeah, that's why many of that kids who stay there in Russia captivity, they being hostage, and they think that Russia is a great country and Russia fighting for their freedom, and this horrible West trying to grab Russia, and it's Soviet propaganda. I grew up in Soviet Union in my school every day. I was listening. I was listening this propaganda that United States of America is evil. They want to come and destroy us. We have to grow up and fight against United States. I was 100% sure that Americans are our enemies and we have to beat them. We have to fight with them. We have to kill them. When you are a kid and growing this propaganda, it's like a poison. They're
Yeah.
poisoning your brain. The same situation now in Russia. Millions of children are poisoning every day. And I can give you one number.
Mhm.
Any country have for their children national, like patriotic and military movements, because many kids want to be a militaries. They're dreaming about it.
Sorry.
Yeah. And one sec, please.
No worries, no worries.
Аж должно бачити, де воно. Кинули це з ним. М? Ні, це сигнал.
Так в тебе в телефоні він не працює?
Ні, в мене я скинула в себе на телефоні, ви тут скинула, воно щось заглючило.
Something wrong with computer. It's a sound. We have to turn on this sound. Yeah, it's much better now. Yeah. Let me finish. Many of children, not many, in any country, you have kids in Japan as well.
Yeah.
Who want to be like a military? I don't know if Japan have the army.
Small
But
defense. They have like a defense, small defense group.
okay, defense. Okay, and in any country, you can have 1% or 0.5% or 0.1% of kids who attending patriotic military movements.
Sure.
And we had research. It's up to 1%. But in Russia, almost 90% of children attending military patriotic movements.
Mhm.
And it is obligation. It's not their choice. They oblige to do this, especially in occupied territories, because for Russia, it's very important to turn these kids into soldiers.
I see.
They are preparing for war. And we heard this from every kid who was saved. And I can tell you one 16 years old boy, when I asked him, what can you tell me about your school, about Russian school in your occupied territory? He told, it is not school, it is military school. Because every day we had military lessons, we handled weapons, and real soldiers, Russian soldiers, came to us to talk with us and to educate us.
Wow.
It happened in occupied territory.
And I guess this is, I mean, for Miroslava as well, she can chime on this one. Is there anything legally international law that says like, look, children cannot be in a position of being indoctrinated as becoming soldiers at such a young age? Is there anything?
Yeah, it's a lot of international legislation. It's a lot of right after Second World War.
Mhm.
It was implemented international legislation, Rome Statute, Geneva Convention, and many more different legislation, convention about genocide, about militarization, about everything. But Russia violated all international legislation. It doesn't work. It no matter for Russia. Through this legislation, Russia obliged to provide Ukraine with all information about children, about civilians in occupied territories. No.
Legal
They-
consequences to this? Like, let's say there's a deal that's done in Alaska, which I would like to ask you about, but what are the consequences if after this peace deal, if for all these crimes, international laws have been violated for these children?
I think Alaska could only start just conversation. I don't believe that Alaska will bring something real. Uh, and I think it's on the one hand, it's real historic time when we have opportunity for leaders, especially for President Trump, who took this responsibility, and leaders from other countries to convince Putin.
Mhm.
I'm religious guy, and do you know Pharaoh? Who was a Pharaoh from a Bible?
I vaguely remember.
You could remember Louis Armstrong's song, uh,
Okay.
let my people go." You know, when Pharaoh had this, um, did not allow Jews to let them go, and Putin, like a Pharaoh
Got it. I
who
see what you're saying. Oh yeah, yeah, I remember
kidnapped,
the story of the Pharaoh.
yeah, who kidnapped whole population and torturing them, and they are hostages, and he don't want let them go. First of all, he must let them go, and it's unique time when they could discuss this in this negotiation process. But I don't know if it will happen.
Let's just playing the other side, devil's advocate here. Putin will argue that these are Russian children now because they've been in Russia now for, let's say, I think 2011 years now, before the full scale war, right? Or even now, that's 4 years. Like, hey, well, they're Russian now. What would be the counter
Yeah,
argument to that?
all of them, all of them are Russian now. You are right, and because they were subjected to receive Russian citizenship. Because right after full-scale invasion 2022, Putin simplified legislation,
Mhm.
and every kid or Ukrainian citizen can freely receive Russian citizenship, but
Mhm.
it's like formally, but really, they were subjected to
I see what you're saying.
have this citizenship. Yeah.
I see what you're saying. So basically, you're saying they were forced to say, like, look, I'm Russian. Here's my Russian documents, but they were this is not because of their own will.
Yeah, yeah, and you know that our expectation, it's our hope
Mhm.
that maybe as their outcome we can have that the Trump or allies demand that Russia cause these practices provide full information about all Ukrainian children registered on its territory
Mhm.
and allowed international organization access to these children.
I
It's
see.
it's only beginning of process. It's we cannot talk about returning back to children if you have no their names, condition
Mhm.
of life, where they, and no any hotline when these children can call and ask about the escape. It's only beginning of process. That's why, first of all, they should agree about it.
That's an interesting angle. Like, so legally, I mean, do you think that the Russians, well, I guess the questions from the Russians' perspective, from the Ukrainian perspective, and, Find My Parent kind of plays a role here of how we're helping. But do you think the Russians have and the Ukrainians have documents of all the kids that they've taken, or do you think they burned those records? They have the original names, birthdays, etc.
Yeah, yeah, and I 100% sure
Oh, you think so?
because Russian machine, Russian machine where KGB guys have all power when Russia has a clear strategy to turn all kids into Russian. They are register every kids,
You
every
think they
kid.
would destroy the records, though? Because I would destroy the
What?
records. If
What?
like all the kids that have been taken from the Ukraine region, right, and they register them as Russian, right, you wouldn't erase all the identity that they were ever taken.
Mm,
Думаєте, чи могли вони повністю знищити всі, ну, записи українських дітей? Їх
no, no, no,
не
no, no. They have these records.
Oh,
They
they do.
have all records. Yeah, they have records. What happened about all people they were killed 100 years ago. They
Interesting.
they have 50 years ago about that who were prosecuted. They care archives, and about million of people. It is Russia. KGB should have all files. That's
Mhm.
why we are sure that they have information and file about every kid who was stolen. And when this child received Russian citizenship, in which territory, and if it's orphan or have families, and because they after registering they provide support, they send in these families and children to far away to eastern Russia to different regions.
Got it. Eh, Is there anything on the Ukrainian side that you know of that we can go like, hey, like we know this is exactly how many you've taken based on our data records, and your list must match our list?
No, I told you that 1.6 million, it's
Yeah.
estimation. I was a main person in Ukraine right after first invasion 2014 who monitored child welfare system and and knew all numbers. I
Mhm.
knew numbers how many kids lived in any territory.
I
We
see. I
have the
see.
statistics. That's why after invasion, we knew how many children stayed there, how many were in Crimea, in Donbass. Yeah, we knew all this information. Yeah, we have no information where are these children now because we know that some of them flee the war abroad. Maybe they stay in Europe or anywhere, but it's not a huge number. It's a little number of that kids, but many of them have been transferred, forcibly transferred to Russia and disappeared.
And I guess for some of the challenges, I guess that you will face, let's say that there is a peace deal struck between Russia and Ukraine, right? How do you see the operation to save Ukraine? How does it change in terms of let's go and reunite these children now? Now that hopefully it's easier since there's no aggression. Was there a different strategy
Um,
that's been planned out, thought out?
Як діяльність Save Ukraine зміниться після закінчення війни? Якщо буде пізділ,
you know that it's the same happened in Second World War.
Okay.
It's Poland, like example. 200,000 children were stolen from Poland. Can you imagine? 200,000 were stolen and taken to Germany and distributed to German families, and only 30,000 were found.
Wow, I had no idea about that.
Yeah. It is a process of how many Jews were killed, stolen, and it was a process of decades when different organizations try to find their tracks. That's why we understand it's a long way, because and it's just one example. It's maybe 3 years ago Poland gave some documents to German elderly.
Oh, wow.
It was a birth certificates, Polish birth certificates, and that German elderly did not know they were Polish kids, and they were
Wow.
kidnapped in early age, and they never knew that they are Polish children. Only now.
Yeah, imagine 80 years later, you find out like I'm actually not German, I'm Polish. And it's like, whoa,
Yeah, yeah.
like
I
what are my
mean, what?
roots? Where's my family?
Yeah, no idea. And they're trying to find, but these gentlemen and ladies have 80 something years.
Yeah. It's like, do I have brothers? Do I have sisters? Do I have aunts, cousins? You start to ask
And
so many questions.
they grew up as a Germans,
Yeah.
and they grew up as Germans. They knew that their roots in Germany.
Yeah. At that age, at 80 years old, you start to question everything and like, who am I really?
Yeah, yeah,
It's that later stage of your life, and that's so yeah, I agree with you. This is a decade process after reunification for these children.
yeah, yeah.
It's not going to be easy. And do you think Russia's going to make this easy?
Mm, I don't know. I really don't know. And I it depends. It depends when this war will stop. It depends. Because it could possible after Second World War when war stopped.
Yeah.
But now it's 11 years of war. And Russia invading more territories. Every day Russia moving forward.
Yeah.
And
More children are being taken.
we lost 50% of children's population for 11 years.
Wow.
50%, half of all children's population of Ukraine, we lost because they fled abroad, many of them. And as I told you, 20% we lost in occupied territories. You started your program, you started your interview telling that children is the future of any country. We're losing our future every day.
Completely. Completely. You
Every
wiped out
day.
50% of your culture.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's
it
why.
begs the question, is it good? How do you how does this impact Ukraine? Is Ukraine going to be the same Ukraine in one generation when these kids grow up? Because 50% are no longer here. Some of them are in Russia, some are abroad, and the ones that stayed is that enough to maintain the Ukraine culture?
Yeah, it's not enough. That's why we have to start from scratches. And it's not it's one challenge, but the other issue is generational trauma
That's the other side.
because millions of children experience displacement. They lost their relatives, homes. They have they have educational losses because before the full-scale invasion it was COVID and many kids had no education, online education, and then war happened. And we have now kids 11, 12 years old who cannot read or write. And can you, this thing, then trauma, huge trauma, losses, displacement, and no permanency, no safety, and all together. It could be generational trauma for these kids.
Yeah, and you mentioned the trauma, and I'm starting to think, right, when American soldiers came back from Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, these are adults who went through a
Yeah,
lot of trauma.
yeah,
Now and we were somewhat knowledgeable how to treat trauma because of Vietnam War and treat Afghanistan and Iraq for our soldiers, American soldiers. But now I'm thinking, how do you treat trauma for children? Is there enough resources to treat trauma for children? Do we even
no,
have the knowledge?
no, no, because problem so huge, it's so different that we have to, for example, our organization developed the programming program for children who've been brainwashed. We never did it before. It's new phenomena when children who've been rescued, they don't understand what happened because they grew up in Russia and they've been brainwashed, and we have to turn them into normal life, into normality. and it's like a new program. And then many kids have real psychological trauma. They had abuse, and it's horrible. You are frozen, Enrique. Ти комп'ютер зараз сяде чи що?
Мгм.
Чи- Oh.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, we're back here.
Okay.
Yeah, you bring up
Okay.
you bring up a valid point because I think about all this trauma, right? And when you're a child, it's so easy to absorb information. And as you get older, it gets harder to get rid of that information because it helps you define who you are.
Mhm.
And then you have identity issues because you're like, I've been told I'm this, but now you're telling me something else. Like you feel completely lost as a child. And then
Yeah.
I'm assuming it stunts your growth. You don't you cannot go into adolescence and into an adult at the right time because everything is just so chaotic in your head as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a years if you will be able overcome your trauma or never overcome, because if it's sexual abuse, if it's losses when Russian soldiers killed someone before your eyes, you will never overcome. You will stay with this trauma for whole your life. Yeah, but it's massively. It's not about some stories. It's about thousands of children. When and if, as you know, we have a lot of researches all over the globe
Mhm.
that, especially in early age, if you have no development, it's a tragedy for whole life of this kid. You will never overcome this. You will never reach this because it's about brain. Because for a child, especially in young age, in early age, critically important to have development. If not, you will never overcome this.
Yeah, and that affects the child, it affects the economy for Ukraine in the future, affects future families. These children are probably gonna be like, hopefully they have the strong morals and don't do alcohol, they don't do drugs. There's a huge amount of issues that can stem out of this that we're not even taking into account. And are the governments ready to face this, the repercussions in 20, 30 years?
Mhm. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So I guess one question I have for you is, in kind of in closing, is what's one action that you would urge people to help rescue more kids?
Hmm. We so grateful for people who supporting Save Ukraine financially and providing us with information. Because Save Ukraine who have great success of searching and rescuing kids because our partners who providing financial support. It's very expensive to rescue one kid because we have investigator team, we have team who provide mediation to communicate with kids and convince them to come and tell them true about this war, about their relatives, researching their relatives, and then we provide financial support for all stages of rescue, and it's not easy. It's so dangerous there, and that's why we have partners, but we need more. And after rescue, we have a bunch of programs for rehabilitation and reintegration of these children, and both that families after reunification with the kids and for unaccompanied minors. We have special program for independent living, or they can stay in our facility, and we provide their rehabilitation and finding for orphans, finding families. That's why we are completely dependent on uh, on financials. That's why we always asking to join our rescue missions, to provide us with financial support, and to support different our programs for orphans, for children with disabilities, for children who experience sexual abuse, for all children who've been rescued from danger. Yeah.
On average, how much does it cost to rescue one of these children in order for people to help out?
It depends of the circumstances, but sometimes it could be $2,000 for a child, sometimes $10,000 for a child. If it's so dangerous, or this child far away in Russia, or we have to prepare it, we have a huge preparation before. I cannot tell you a lot because it's confidential, but it's sometimes
Yeah.
it's really hard. That's why our partners clearly understand how dangerous and important is this, and supporting us. And then maybe it's more expensive in 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 some cases, maybe usually it's more expensive to provide rehabilitation reintegration, because it's a months before we will be able to rehabilitate and then reintegrate these kids. We have kids who live in our programs 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you provide housing,
That's
food,
Yeah, we
schooling?
provide housing. We have up to 1,000 beds in our different programs for rehabilitation. We have hope and healing centers. We have 130 modular houses all over Ukraine, and we provide their rehabilitation in these modular houses. But these houses for families with kids after reunification, and rescue, they can stay there. And we have our residential care programs with up to 6 months of rehabilitation in our hope and healing centers. It's altogether up to 1,000 beds in our residential care facilities.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, is there anything in closing that you want to send a message to the audience?
Yeah, we always so grateful, because I have in many countries, in European countries, US, and even in Japan, I have a lot of friends who were standing with us every day, who were praying for us, who were supporting us, who did their best to help us exist, to rescue kids, because they are our future, to help that relatives whose children were kidnapped, to find them and to rescue them. That's why we are so grateful for every person who are with us, because it is encouraging us. It's not only about money. Yeah, we really need financial support, but it's about encouraging. When you are you are like with me, and you understand my pain,
Yeah,
and you can take part of my pain and carry my pain, yeah, and pray for me and just support me. It's very encouraging, and so it supports me. Yeah, that's why we asking you to stand with us, because this war did not stop, and children suffer.
yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Just one of the things that I see in our foundation, it's very heavy on the soul. When you hear some of these horror stories, it's you go home, you're like, wow, I can't believe that's what I heard today. And you're like, well, everybody's smiling and laughing with their families. You're thinking about that one case that you heard about today. You're like, if they only knew that one child what they went through, or that
Yeah,
father or that mother, what they're
yeah.
going through right now.
Yeah, you can find a lot of our stories in our social media. And if you can share our social media, our stories, and if you are listening us and can share these stories, we will be so grateful that we want whole the world will know about these circumstances, about this war, about stories of these children, and help us rescue more kids. And if you can share our website and ask people donate, you can do it very easy. And maybe your dollar can help rescue one more kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll include your social media accounts on the description for everybody to go. And hopefully they can share their stories and word gets out.
Thank you. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, Mikola. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.